Good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm good. Nervous.
Wow. No nervousness.
I just get
I set up a different camera this morning, so yeah, you can see me. My typical camera is down here, so you get to look up my nose most of the day. All right, so this was interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah. All right, so a quick. Let me see if this is recording or not yet.
It says it is in the top left.
All right, so let's pause it. Okay, so just remind me, have you been through this before?
Yes.
The full KPA verification. Do you remember how long it took?
The first part probably took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, I would guess.
Okay, so
Actually,
somebody did it well.
well, Mark did it. My regional director did it.
Okay, awesome. And what did you learn through that process? Through going through it yourself?
Well, I learned that I'm pretty awesome. No, it's
You are awesome, Matt.
I learned that it's pretty spot on. That the stuff that it was telling me seemed to be right. Now there were some overall, there were some, when I was done, there were some things that I thought might have read wrong.
Okay.
The one that I always laugh about is the intensity. But other than that, the way it described my personality and the way I am, I think it was pretty spot on.
Okay. Well, we're going to go through it exactly as it's written. And okay. I kind of want you to look at it, obviously, from going through it, but also so that you do almost the exact same thing when you take somebody through it. And
absolutely
go deeper, because the tool is fantastic, but if we just gloss over it and use it as kind of okay, I checked that box, I got that part done, you're going to miss building the relationship and really getting to know the person. As I told you last week, my mindset over the years has evolved on this. I really want to think about, all right, I'm getting into a professional marriage possibly with the person that I'm taking through this. Okay. So I'm going to look really deep. And at the end of roughly 15 pages, I want a document that completely reflects who you are as a human. Okay. So I'm going to make lots of notes on it and probably ask you some deeper questions. Cool?
Okay. Yeah, good. Let's do it.
All right. So the first section, it's called job considerations. And all of these questions, all the sentences I'm going to read, I want you to think about on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being it absolutely nailed you and 1 it missed the mark completely. I just want to give a number rating, and then I'll ask you some more questions around it.
Let's do it.
Matt welcomes responsibility for tackling difficult objectives and achieving defined goals.
It's a 10.
What makes it a 10?
It's just my personality. It's the way I've always been. I like to get things done, and I feel like that's what that statement's saying. I'm one of those people who doesn't really think about just kind of doesn't overthink things, and that's what I feel like that statement's saying, is that you make a decision, you move on, whether it's right or wrong. It's your decision, and move on with it.
Okay. He is very assertive, competitive, and straightforward.
1,000% a 100. And the part that sticks out there to me is the competitive. That's what's always driven me, from playing sports when I was younger to why I try to succeed in this business now. It's honestly to beat everyone else. That's what I want to do. That's what drives me.
Okay, so interesting. When you're not winning, how does that show up in you?
It drives me, and it pushes me to get back to being number one, because I don't like resting on I don't like resting. I don't like not being there. So it drives me even more. When I get there as number one, I want to stay there. But when I'm not there, I want to get back there.
When you get there, and I know in your market you were there for a long time and now we're not.
Correct.
When does the complacency set in? When you are the top competitor, you have nobody else that's pushing you with that competition. How does that affect you?
I can run out front by myself pretty well, and I'm comfortable doing so. And again, that's in this business, it's self-motivation. You have to be a self-motivated, a self-starter. I got to number one from being a no one 15 years ago. So that was driving me. And then once I got there, I didn't want to relinquish that crown, if you will. But our market changed where we ended up having teams that are larger than me come in and they're competing with me and pushing me out of the way, which isn't going to last much longer.
Okay. He has a good deal of personal pride and ego involvement in his achievement.
Yeah. I'll put a 9 on that. Probably pretty close to a 10. And my ego has been known to get in the way from time to time. I try to, I think my assistant's currently laughing at me right now as she's sitting in the office. But it's been known to get in the way, and it needs to be curbed from time to time. But again, I think that falls back on the previous, sentence, the competitiveness. I think those two kind of run together, in my opinion.
So what would make it a 10? You said it's a 9, not quite a 10.
I think in my mind, I want to think that my ego isn't getting in the way, but it probably is closer to a 10 than it is a 9. And there is ego involved. And that's, again, the ego is what wants me to be number one. I sound horrible, but it's
no, you don't. You sound like any other achiever. You just are admitting it.
It pushes me. I think competitive and ego, I think in some way go hand in hand. So speaking on that now, I'd say that's probably closer to 10 than anything else.
Okay. So let's go back. You said it can be a problem. It's been in the way before. How has it shown up as a negative, that ego piece?
I feel like people sometimes feel it, and they can, in deals we've done and people I've met, they just think that I'm egotistical. In the recruiting of people and the growth of this market center that we're launching, I met some people who didn't really know me, but they just assumed they wouldn't like me. And now that they know me personally, they're like, you're a lot nicer than I expected. We figured, being at that high level, you just had a high ego where you thought, so highly of yourself. And I think any successful person has to think highly of themselves to a point, but I think there's also, that apparently people were assuming that my ego was bigger than it needed to be. Does that make sense?
It does. And then the last sentence in here, he wishes to lead, direct, and set the pace.
100%. That's another 10. And I feel like when we went through this the first time, I feel like the 10s that I was giving was almost like, is this possible for something to read me this well? But it did in most cases. Again, I like to be out front. I like to lead from the front. I always have. I like to, help people through, support when I need to, but ultimately be out front pushing people is the way that I've always looked at my life and how I vision myself.
Okay. So when you're dealing with people who aren't quite this assertive, which is most people, that can be a challenge. How has that shown up for you? And tell me about a time or two when it hasn't worked out well.
I think any leader or any person in the position can read that right off the bat, and they change their leadership style. I can pump the brakes if I need to. I can back down if I need to. I have a lot of S and C's in my life. My wife is an S and a C. We get along phenomenally well because, I think sometimes that balance is what's needed in the world. My assistant is an S and a C. So once I know that's the type of person it is, I can adapt as needed.
Okay. That's great. And that you've got that awareness. What happens when you're under stress? Because for most of us, your natural behavior is going to come out even more apparently when you're under stress, right? So how do you deal with those SC behavior types when you yourself have your back up against the wall?
Not always that well, honestly. A lot of it results in frustration at times because I look at somebody and I feel like we've, given them the tools and given them what they need to be self-starters, and frustration does come out and I can feel it. And I try to work through that, but at times, because you can be so different than someone, it's just like, my mindset is, why are you not getting this? Why are you not doing it the way that I would do it and just move forward?
What do you think their mindset about you is in those moments?
Can I speak freely?
I hope so.
I think he can be an ass, he can be short. He does have not a temper, but he expects such a high level. And when they don't hit the timelines and that kind of stuff, I can get short with them. And I think that in some cases would be their response. And that's something that I've work on and try to try to work through, because I can feel myself getting frustrated and I feel myself wanting um, to not be, because that's not what I'm not trying to make people upset. I'm just trying to get them where they need to be.
Okay. And the last question I'll go on this one is, have you lost people, relationships, clients, because of that aggressiveness, that assertiveness?
I'm sure I have. Can I think of one off the case? Agents, friends, no. Because those people, once they get to know me, one of my business partners has worked with me for 15 years. She hired me out of real estate school, and she knows me extremely well. And when we worked at our previous company, her office was across the way from mine, and people would come in my office and ask me questions, and I would hear her say, "Is he not looking at you?" And the answer would be yes. And she said, "If he's not looking at you, it means he's in the middle of something and he wants to finish it. So why don't you come over here and talk to me?" So, I've surrounded myself with some people that can help me grow that way, I guess. But I mean, yeah, clients, absolutely. I've had frustration with clients before, just not getting it. And something that seems so logical to me, to them, just, they need to take their time to process it. And again, I think that's the driver in me. It always has been. And I think when you're competitive, that driver is going to come out more often than not, because I want to speed through it and get it done and move on to the next task, where sometimes they need a little bit more assistance and time to process.
Okay. Okay.
Am I fired yet? Am I fired yet?
I think you're doing pretty well. All right. Matt is noted for his quick responsiveness and urgency.
That is what I pride my business on. I believe one of the reasons I became successful in real estate is that my response time is there. It always has been. If you email me, you're typically going to hear back from me within 10 minutes at max. Still to this day, it drives my wife insane because I have my phone with me all the time. But it's something I'm working through to try to, but it's what I pride my business on, so I can't slip on that. And again, so yes, that's a 10 to answer the question the long-winded way.
It's okay. He likes to get things accomplished in short order, and he tends to establish challenging deadlines.
I'm thinking we all know the answer to that this far into it. Yeah, that's pretty close to being, that's a 10 also.
Okay. He resists activities that are slow moving, and he may seem to have a short attention span when performing tasks he finds uninteresting.
1000%. 10. I mean, yeah, I like to get things done, like to move on.
So how do you deal with things that actually take you slowing down and take a little bit longer time?
Not always the greatest. It's been learning and growing through that process to understand that sometimes, I'm looking at my computer screen right now, and on the bottom right of one of my other screens, there's like 15 emails that are open that I minimized. And the reason being because they are actually going to take some thought. So I couldn't just process through those. So I take them, I put them down, I come back later when I'm in a better mindset. So how do I think I put it, in a lot of cases, I'll put it down for a minute, think about it, and then come back to it, kind of reset, get out of that rush mindset. My 8 to 10 in the morning is rush. It's catching up for the night before. It's meetings. So the stuff that takes me a while in emails and phone calls, I'll leave that till later in the day when I have a little bit more time, when I'm not under the gun as much. Okay. So I think it's just reprioritizing, I guess, is probably the best way I do that.
Okay. Just coming off Mega Camp, you may have had this experience. There's some people and classes or breakout sessions that move a little more slowly. How do you deal with pacing that isn't quite as fast as you?
I put tire tracks in their back and I run them over from behind. It's a good question. I try in most cases to surround myself with people that are similar to myself. I think that helps me achieve. And then when I have other people that I can bounce off my mindset to, I think it helps me deal with the people that are different than me and look at things differently and maybe do it a little bit slower, better than if I didn't have other people to be like, hey, I like to talk through things. So that's really what I do is I'll talk through it with similar mindset people. And then from there, figure out the best way to help these people.
Okay. And similar to the last question I had, when we're dealing with people that have a slower pace, they can't quite process as quickly as we can. They sometimes don't have the best opinion of us. So how has that shown up for you, and how have you navigated that? Again, specifically with either former employees or clients.
Well, you'll learn through this process. I'm a real estate agent from the day I graduated college. So when we get down further into life story, my life story literally takes about 45 minutes because it's all really real estate. That's really all I know. So it would be more with clients, with colleagues, that kind of stuff. We touched on the one before where, the people thought I was somebody that I wasn't, just because they assumed that a super mega agent, and I hate to call myself that, but I guess I can, in my market, in my market at least, they just assume that when you're at that level and you're, I'm a gregarious guy. When I took the disc, the number one thing it said on the eye is gregarious. I think that personality sometimes can come out wrong. I think it comes out egotistical, cocky almost, but it's not. It's just I'm full of. I like to laugh. I like to have fun. I'm loud, which we all, that by now. So I think ultimately, where was I going with this? Lost my mindset.
Well, what's the impact on the people that aren't that are the opposite? Because often we're going to have them in our market centers as an OP, right? And administrative staff going forward. That gregariousness, that loudness can be a little bit intimidating. And so how have you dealt with that in the past?
And I try to tone it down the best I can, but if I tone it down too much, I'm not being myself. And if I'm not myself, these people I'm not going to be happy, which is going to come out in the market center. So it's just learning them and over time growing. And I think one of the things that I love the most, and I love the KPA is great, but hitting somebody with a disc real quick and letting me know where they are across the board. I mean, if I see somebody that's similar to me, okay, cool. I know how I can talk to them. But if I get somebody back like Terry, who's sitting over here, or my wife, who have the S and the C a lot higher than me, it helps me realize how the best way to manage those people. So I think using tools around me helps me cope with it better and adjust my managerial style. If I guess that's probably the best way I could put it.
Okay.
And the thing, KPA is great, but the disc literally takes 5 minutes. And that's the thing about that one, that I think it's a tool that people, I still like to use.
Okay, sir. Thank you for that. All right. Matt likes to do what is right on an objective basis.
Yes. 10.
10. Okay. He will consider the legitimate expectations of people, but he is not willing to compromise his values to satisfy wishes and preferences that conflict with his own judgment.
That's probably true. Yeah, that's a 10. I'll listen, but ultimately, I'm sometimes a tough person to convince to go another way. If I'm hell bent on going to the left and somebody wants to go to the right, I'm probably going to end up going to the left. Okay. Unless I have 5 to 10 to 15, unless I have a lot of people to be able to tell me exactly why we need to go right, then I will consider it. But ultimately, I'm going to steer the ship the way I'm comfortable.
Okay. So some companies and organizations will go to any length to keep people inside and outside the organization happy. Tell me about a time where you've been urged to do that, either keep a client happy or probably a client situation, but you didn't think it was reasonable or achievable.
Those are the clients that I like to say are ex-clients, and those are the ones that I let go. The ones that don't match with me, the ones that are, you and I have this conversation often. Is it worth that negative person in my life for one deal when they're bringing so much negativity, and I can move on and get somebody else that works better with me and makes it easier. So I would say the people that I've had it's just making sure that I'm happy in the day-to-day and in the business. So sometimes there are clients we're not going to work well with, and it's not our personality, and I can hand those off to Terry, or I can look at Terry and be like, is this guy driving you insane? Because he's driving me crazy. It's time that he goes. And luckily in our business, we get to make those decisions. It's a
Very
little bit,
true. Now you have the OP hat, right? So we
it's a
don't
lot,
always.
it's a lot harder in that managerial position because ultimately you're potentially changing people's lifestyles.
Well, and there's certain things certain lines you have to follow and toe because you're not just on your own now. So how is that going up?
Let me think about that for a second. Again, I think it's growth, and I think it's being willing to grow and being willing to look at the vision. And if I, as OP, set the vision the way that it needs to be set, and everybody understands the vision, then there really shouldn't be a whole lot of questioning. They should understand where I'm going. They should understand where we're going as a market center. If they don't agree with something, they 100% have the right to bring it to me. And over time, as I get more comfortable in this role and as my leadership group gets more comfortable in the role, I think we work well together. We mesh well. I think over time, we're all going to be on that same page. And that's my job to get us there by setting a realistic vision.
Oh, the audio went out on your side. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Am I not there?
You're back. You're back.
I'm back. Okay.
Yep.
Where'd you lose me?
It's your job to set the vision and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. And I think over time that vision gets clearer and clearer because you start working together. I mean, we have, in my market center at least, we have an OP, myself, who's been with Keller Williams a little over a year. We have an MCA I hired 3 months ago who's been amazing. We have a TL who's new in the role completely. I have one of my majority owners, or one of the major owners, is very involved in that also. But when you take 3 separate personalities and mesh them together and all of a sudden try to run something that I've never been an OP before, she's never been an MCA, she's never been a TL. So it takes a little while to get that right. But I think over time, the vision gets clearer and clearer, and we're going, the ship again is going the right way, which I believe it is at this point.
Okay. Fantastic.
I don't even know if I answered that question. I think I might have just
did. What was really important in that, what I heard was how important the why is for you to understand, and then the purpose why. You can get in line as long as you understand the greater purpose of it, and you're clear that you have to be able to articulate that greater purpose to your people.
Yeah.
That's what
I'm really smart.
You are really smart. No matter what your wife says.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
All right. Matt can work well in an unstructured environment.
I think real estate is a definition of unstructured. So yeah, 100%. I mean, my day, I walk in, you and I are looking at trying to put a schedule together. That schedule changes hourly, depending upon what happened in the last 45 minutes. So I think if you need structure and you're in real estate, you're in the wrong business.
Okay. He does not like to be bound by strict adherence and unquestioning compliance to tight parameters.
100%. And I think that's any entrepreneur. I think that's any person who wants to run their own company, who wants to, I think it's just the type of person that, I think your competitiveness, I think everything that we've talked about comes out in that statement for me. It's just, this is going to sound weird, but let me fly, either let me sink or swim. I'm going to do one or the other.
Okay. He values innovation and change, and he usually does not hesitate to challenge the status quo.
10.
Okay. He has good tolerance for ambiguity, and he's willing to accept risks and uncertain outcomes of his efforts.
Yeah, I mean, that's real estate. This whole, anybody who gets in a commission-based business is taking risk. There's no guarantees where the next one's going to come from. So yeah, 10.
So some managers prefer to give their employees strict guidelines to follow, while others like to let them operate pretty independently. How do you show up in that?
If you're not operating independently, you're not the right person for the role. I do not micromanage. I don't have time to micromanage. If I'm micromanaging, I'm going to make your life miserable. It's what my assistant just said. She said miserable, right as I said miserable. So it's more or less one of those, if I'm on top of you and I'm checking on you every 15 minutes, it means the door is about to open and you're going to probably be going out it pretty soon. And I'm not going to kick you. I'm going to walk you nicely and give you a handshake and say, thanks for trying. It just didn't work out for us.
Okay. Describe some time in the past where you were actually given really strict guidelines to follow, where you were under somebody's thumb.
Oh, we'll step back. I said before I was real estate straight out of school, but that was kind of a little bit of I forgot. I graduated college and I went to work for Enterprise Rent-A-Car in their management trainee program, which is one of the top management trainee programs. And there's a lot of upside in it, but that's really what it was. My manager was on me all the time. I just didn't, I felt like I earned trust and I earned freedom, but that his managerial style was, basically my theory is if you're getting the tasks done, then I don't have to worry about it. But his was, you might be getting the task done, but you still need to report to me, every 2 hours on what you've done. And nope, I quit. I quit. I went and landscaped for 8 months and got my real estate license. And here we are today.
Okay. All right. Matt is inquisitive and bright.
I mean, can anyone say no to that? 10.
Yeah. Awesome. He's an avid, that's a great word. He's an avid learner who picks up new concepts easily and quickly.
I do agree with that. Yeah, 10. And I do enjoy stuff, especially, the new stuff we're dealing with here at KW, the tech stuff. That's always been, technology has always been something that interests me.
Awesome. He's interested in a wide variety of topics, and he constantly seeks out new ideas.
I mean, yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
When processing new information, he tends to dig deeper into the material to deepen his understanding.
Yeah, I like a full understanding of what I'm doing. I like to know the ins and outs of everything the best I can. And again, in a leadership role, I don't feel like you can lead someone down a path without knowing exactly where you're going and why you're going that way.
Okay. He's able to grasp subtlety and nuance in communication and can positively impact the precision with which he interacts with others.
10.
Okay, so one of the things that often comes up with this particular character trait is getting bored easily and moving on to the next thing, the shiny object syndrome. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you put yourself with that?
Shiny object. 6.
Okay.
Just because, I don't really get bored with something until I fully understand it. So when I fully understand it, that's when I'm ready to move on. But if I'm still sitting there and not really sure what I'm doing, I'm not going to move on at that point until I'm ready. And then once I'm ready, let's go. Next topic.
Okay. In your current profession, both as an OP and as an agent, tell me about a situation where you had to learn something new. Could be this technology recently. How do you go about learning it? What's your process?
Let's just go back to May 17th a year ago. I mean, I transferred from a local brokerage that I was at for 15 years to Keller Williams. And I didn't really, I had read MREA, but I hadn't studied it. I hadn't really understood it, the models, the systems and all that. So that was the first thing we had to focus on, was getting that tight. And then also just understanding the mindset, the culture, the everything. I feel like I dug deep into it. I surrounded myself with people that knew more than I did. And we all worked together to get the growth and get the comfort that we needed so we could move on and focus on other stuff. And I feel like that's the same way the OP role. I've found successful OPs within Keller Williams that now are coaches, friends, that I can reach out to when I have a question and say, hey, just real quick, can I run this by you? And I think something I've been told for years is always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And I've been very successful at doing that. And I find people that for some reason like me and are like, yeah, let's help that charity case.
Okay. So what I heard there is reading and conversation, masterminding with other people. That's your quickest process to learn new information.
Reading is not something and this is going to sound horrible. I'm more of I put it in my ear and listen to it.
Okay.
My mindset when I read is I'm all over the place, and I'll be 10 pages in and I'll think, what did I just read? It's the way. And I think that's what we talked about. That might be the shiny object. I'm thinking about the next thing that I need to be doing. So it tends to be when I plug in, I get more out of it. So I have all of my, podcasts, books, everything. I tend to listen better than I read. Now with MRE, I like to read it because I need to see the diagrams and all that. It does help, but overall I process better this way.
Okay.
But yes, masterminding is something that I've really enjoyed, because like I said, there's a lot of people in my area, not per se in my market, that are where I want to be. And that's one of the coolest things about Keller is that, they're willing to help me and they want to help. And, hey,
it's an awesome part of this company.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep. Okay. Matt is intuitive and quick in approaching many issues.
Yes. 10.
He likes dealing with new problems of all sorts.
10.
He's able to easily deal with smaller issues and then move rapidly to the next.
9.
Okay. Why the hesitation? Why a 9, not a 10?
Because I feel like small issues is micromanaging something that I shouldn't have to be doing. There should be other people that handle that for me.
Okay.
Small issues should not always be the person in front. It should be, in my opinion, in a lot of cases, the support staff behind you.
Okay. So tell me about a situation where you found yourself being bombarded with one problem after the other. Which ones had you require on your intuition? So let me give you a little more context on this. Actually, let me phrase it in a different way. When do you not rely on your intuition?
It's a good question. I would say 90% of my life is intuition. It's the way that my mind works. I would say it's probably 90-10. And when I don't have to, when I'm using something else, it feels awkward. And it's not as comfortable for me, because I am that confident person. And I think I know or can find the right answers for a lot of situations.
You've probably heard Gary say, don't trust your gut.
I trust my gut 1,000%.
Well, okay. And
sorry.
No, it's okay. He says don't trust it in the hiring process. So when it tells you to go forward that somebody's great and they're the right fit, to actually go into the process and go deeper, because most of us like people and we're going to be really good at justifying why we should make a hire versus coming at it from why we shouldn't. So what I'm going to actually challenge, without going into depth, we'll come back on a one-on-one call on this. When your gut tells you not to hire somebody or to move away from them, move away quickly. When it tells you they're awesome, you're probably falling in love too fast and you want to go back into the process and go deeper.
Will that be the code?
Okay,
yes.
We'll come back to that. Just say yes.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Matt enjoys working with tools, structures, and things.
Tools, yes. Things, yes. Structures, not so much. If we're talking about structures, we're not talking about structure, we're talking about structure. So this is basically
a model.
This is the models. Yes, I love hands-on, 100%. I'm a visual learner. It's the way I've always been. If you put something in front of me, draw it out, and I'm thinking of stuff like that, I'm going to learn it a lot better. When I was in college, it was never one of those like go home and read the book. It was like I got to be in class, listening and hearing and understanding it that way. I comprehend a lot better that way.
Okay. He can think about and visualize how systems work.
Yes, 10.
He can use technology solutions to solve problems.
That is correct, 10.
It will be relatively easy for him to deal with scientific, technical, structural, and engineering types of problems.
I mean, yeah, I would say 10. I don't know how many of those I come across in my day-to-day, but I would feel confident finding an answer.
Okay. Tell me about one of the systems that you're using in the team and how you developed that.
My real estate team.
Yep. Because that's been around longer, right? The market center is only a year old. So the team you've been in for a lot longer, you probably have more systems.
Yeah, and honestly, we're implementing those daily and getting those tight because again, for the last 15 years, it was traditional brokerage, which we don't really talk about that as much. But right now, we're working through some restructuring, moving some people around and getting them in positions where I think they're going to excel a lot better. Not that they're not excelling in the roles they're in right now, but I think there's more possibility. I think my people will be happier in different roles, so that's what we're looking at right now.
But go back to the actual systems, any systems, whether it's a listing system or your marketing, how did you come up with the system? What's your process for that?
Surround yourself with people smarter than you and take their ideas.
Okay.
No, a lot of it is just, it's trial and error and it's finding out what works for you.
Right.
One of my, we talk about this all the time, which people amaze. One of my number one marketing systems is postcards. I postcard like a crazy person. And I live in a, different market, second home market, similar, where you are and some other people are, where my owners don't live here. And that is a system that I have developed that works extremely well for me. And because of that system, my listing presentations are done over the phone, and that's something that I've developed over time. So yeah, I mean, it's really trial and error and figure out what works and figure out what you're comfortable. We talk about all the time, don't lead generate with 10 different lead generations. Find the one or two that you're really good at and focus in on those, and then, branch out from there. So that's really what it is.
Awesome. Okay, when dealing with difficulties at work, Matt prefers to maintain positive relationships.
Matt prefers to go home. No, I'm just kidding. I try to keep people happy the best I can.
Okay.
I'm not a huge confrontational person, but when I need to be, I can be. When there's fierce conversations aren't my favorite, but when one needs to be had, it'll be had, and it'll be had in a professional manner.
Okay. He tends to avoid conflict and strives to identify mutually agreeable solutions.
It depends on the situation. So I'm going to say probably 8 on that.
Okay.
Just depends on what we're dealing with. If it's my business, it's my decision. If it's the market center, I'm going to collaborate a lot more, and I'm going to open up to other people's ideas and see what we can do.
Okay.
And we will agree on what we believe to be the best strategy moving forward.
Okay. So much more collaborative than this would say.
Yeah.
He will, however, persist until the problems are resolved.
That's correct. We're fixing it one way or another.
Okay. So you said that fierce conversations aren't your best, not your favorite thing to do, but you will have them. Has there ever been a time where you waited too long?
Yes.
Is that a tendency that I should be aware of?
I don't think so. I think it was a 24-year-old, 25-year-old kid that didn't really know what he was doing. I'm one of those people who, when I turn a corner, I'm really, really hard to bring back. So I turned some corners on some people, and instead of having that conversation, I thought it was a better idea just to make their life not fun at the office. And I want, it changed my attitude, but I don't think I'm that person anymore.
Okay.
But I don't think anybody loves having fierce conversations, but I think they're a way of business. But I feel like it's
they're a way of leadership. As a leader, and as your leadership roles get bigger and bigger, that will become much greater part of your life. Because
and I
you're
think
the only guy who can have them. There's nobody above you now to take those on.
And I think with that, experience comes with that, and with experience comes comfort. I think most people that haven't been in a leadership role or haven't had employees that didn't work out haven't had that conversation yet, and it's not comfortable. The first one, it sucks. It's just not a good time, because like I said before, in a lot of cases, you're changing someone's livelihood. You're taking them out of a role where they're collecting a paycheck, and you're basically saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, this just isn't working for me." So it's not fun, but the bigger picture is what's more important to me. But again, this was the story I was talking about was an office assistant at my old brokerage who we just didn't get along. And at that point, I was that 24-year-old who went from waiting tables at Outback Steakhouse to making good money. And, I thought that I was the king of the world, and I thought that I could really, there was some arrogance there, which I think has fallen out over time. Actually, I know it has. I'm not that same 24-year-old kid with that crazy fire I used to have. I've been beaten down by my clients over the years.
So yeah, to keep in mind with this, because we don't want to have those conversations and have to de-hire somebody, take them out of, a job, we are going to alter their lives. It's one of the reasons I slow down during the hiring process, because I want to make sure, we're hiring for 30, 60, 90 days at a time. And if I've convinced you to come with me in this journey, I better make sure I'm not setting you up to be, out of here in 30 or 60 days.
And that's one thing that I'm learning over time. Take your time. Don't hire ultimately out of desperation, because if you hire out of desperation, it's a big, big, big mistake. And I think we've all done it.
For sure. And we'll probably all do it again.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's why we get coaches to go, slow down. You are altering people's lives, yours and other people. So
Yep. Pump your brakes, relax a minute. Mm-hmm.
All right. When dealing with complex problems, Matt prefers not to shift to a more slow, methodical, step-by-step approach.
Yeah, I'd say that's a 10.
Okay.
I like to power through things if I can. Now, if it needs to be done, if I need to slow down, if my all right, let's get this done. Let's figure out a resolve and move forward. But I don't like to sit there and overanalyze and overthink things, because all that's doing is just slowing down every process in my life.
Okay.
But if it needs to be, that's when we minimize and we put it to the bottom right of the screen and we come back to it later. Right. So, just kind of restructuring, reprioritizing is how I would say I would do that.
Okay. And so there are things in our business where we do have to slow down and take a little bit more logical approach. We're going to be budgeting for market centers here in a month. That's a glorious adventure for somebody who's really fast paced and wants to be more intuitive.
And I think that's surrounding yourself with the right people again. I might try to power through that, but my MCA is going to look at me and be like, hold on, we need to talk about this. Okay, let's talk about it then. So I think it's being open to once again, being open to other people's mindsets, because when you put an OP and an MCA together, a lot of times they're completely different people. The profile is going to be totally different. So for me to work well with that person, I need to be open to the way that they process and the way that they move forward. So if I'm going too fast, my relationship with my FC, she'll tell me, hey, you got to give me some time to work through this. Okay, cool. Let's do it. So.
Okay. Matt is outwardly friendly and wants to be on good terms with nearly everyone.
It's one of the traits I don't love about myself, but yeah, it's pretty true.
Why don't you love it?
Because I feel like at times I shouldn't really care what other people are thinking and why they have to be happy. It's really not that. It shouldn't be important to me, but in a lot of cases it is. It bothers me when people don't like me. I don't know why. It always has. People have always said, who cares? That's just not one of your people. The saying is, if you have 5 people if you can count 5 people on your hand that would be there for you in a minute, that's all that matters. And I have those people, but I still don't like when other people are like, we don't like Matt. So I don't know if it's insecurity. I'm not sure what it is.
Okay.
But it's been there my whole life.
He maintains a generally positive sense of the future and likes to see the positive in others as well as in the future situations.
I am 100% glass half full. I always have been. My optimism is unbelievable. My wife loves that about me because she's the opposite. And Jenny will look at me all the time and be like, he's my eternal optimist. And anything can go wrong in our life. And I'll wake up the next morning and the glass next to my bed is half full again. We've been through some tough stuff personally, years ago. And it was always, even no matter how bad it got with what it was. And yeah, that sounds weird, but it was, we're good.
Okay.
So it was, just no matter how bad it's ever been in my life, it's always been, all right, let's find the positive. Let's find how we can flip this and make it. I might know one person more optimistic than me in my life that I've met.
Okay. And so he will sometimes maintain this positive view, even when the objective situation does not warrant it. Basically saying, you might miss some red flags or ignore them.
Yeah. I would agree with that. The way you reworded it, I would say, yeah, there's probably some times when Overly positive makes you miss things that maybe someone who's not as optimistic would pick up on. So yeah.
So one of the things that can happen is you go, well, it's going to be all right anyway. So we'll go this direction and it's going to work out because you have the confidence you're going to make it work out. But it's possible you lose some efficiency and time because you've continued down a direction that somebody a little bit more skeptical might have avoided. Has that happened for you?
Yeah, I'm sure it has, 100%. In business, you know, there's dead ends that we chase that somebody a little bit more skeptical, like you said, probably would have been, why don't we veer back this way instead of going 90 that way? And again, I think that is surrounding yourself with people that are different than yourself, that can bring that view or that vision to you and say, hey, I have some questions about this. Well, meanwhile, I'm going to be Mr. Happy going this way when maybe that's not the right case. So yeah, I would say, can I think of an example off the top of my head? No. But I'm sure, knowing what we're talking about here, that it has happened in my life.
Okay. Matt has a high level of natural sociability, and he's comfortable meeting new people and working with and through others.
My wife tells me all the time, you can put me in a room full of strangers and I'll have them all as my best friends within 5 minutes. And I will talk to a light post if I think it'll talk back to me. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy people. Actually, one of my wife's best friends' husbands, who's a good friend of mine, they almost hate when we're out together because the two of us can't not talk to people. Like, there'll be somebody sitting behind us and one of us will be like, you gonna talk to him or I gotta talk to him? So yeah, I mean, that's our personality. And when we get together, it's even worse because we kind of bounce off each other. But no, I've never had a problem talking to people.
Okay.
Always been something. That's actually why I got into real estate. My mom looked at me and said, hey, you're so good with people. Maybe you should go get your real estate license. Okay, give that a shot. So
it worked out all right for you.
Yeah, it's been okay.
He strives to motivate people in a positive way without compromising his agenda.
Correct. 10.
He displays resilience and high energy in challenging social environments.
10.
Okay. I'm sure you've had to deal with people who are less people-oriented than you. Sounds like almost everybody. Tell me about where this has happened and maybe made you uncomfortable, or just how you've handled people who need a lot less social interaction than you do.
Luckily, in our business, most real estate agents are pretty social. They have a good level of sociability. They can talk. They're not awkward. But you know, back in college, and again, this is being a 19-year-old punk, but it was more or less the people that weren't the athletes, that weren't the outgoing, that weren't out and about. I wasn't always the friendliest to them, but I think that was the 19-year-old kid in me. Okay. But nowadays, I guess I tend to maybe not gravitate towards those people as much. I'll help them when needed, but ultimately I'll let somebody else jump into that role, and kind of, you know, say, hey, look, maybe in leadership, maybe we break these people up and you focus on that person and I'll focus on this person and I'll check in when I need to. But you know, just trying, because I don't want them to be uncomfortable with me, which they might be if they're totally different.
Sure.
So,
and in a business environment, in the market center, on the team, you're going to have people who don't want that much social contact, right? They need to leave them alone a little bit. Yep. And there's times we can talk too much. Gary Keller actually sometimes says the high I that comes out, we have a tendency not to get things done because the water cooler chat or just that high level of sociability. So has that shown up for you?
I think my D, that is that much stronger in my personality that controls me. The driver always comes out above the water cooler chat. I don't come to the office to hang out and talk to people. I come to the office to get my work done, interact with who I need to, you know, of course, say hi to my friends, say hi to the people I work with, but ultimately this is a place of business and that's why I'm here. Okay. If I want to hang out, I'll call you on a Thursday night and say, hey, let's go grab dinner. Let's go have a drink or something along those lines. But ultimately, when I'm in here, my mindset is business.
Okay. All
And
right.
if you're looking for a beautiful home in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, there's my
I
sign.
love it that you've got the sign there. It's fantastic. Can't read a phone number though.
Yeah, it's small. Oh no, that's because the phone number's not on there. The phone number's on the rider that goes with the sign, so that we can flip them out to the team.
All right. Matt recognizes the benefits of friendly, straightforward communications. He's naturally expressive and articulate and has good persuasive aptitude.
In other words, that says I'm awesome, and
You are
yes,
so cool. Yeah.
I believe it. Yeah, that's a 10.
Yeah. He's usually eager to share and promote his ideas, and he tends to be undeterred by opposing viewpoints.
10.
He likes to get to the heart of issues quickly and decisively without being sidetracked by details,
We know that's a 10.
pesky details.
Mm.
Matt is assertive and results-oriented. He has the confidence in his ability to make decisions independently.
9.
Okay, what makes it a 9?
The independently. I can, but in a leadership role, I like to collaborate. I like to talk to people about it. I like to get other people in my leadership, in my group's opinion before I rule with the iron fist, which I don't do. I never have, but I feel like in my business, personally, that would be a 10. I feel like in the market center, it's probably more of a 9 would be my guess.
Okay.
Because I'm not always right, and I'm willing to admit that.
Cool.
I actually tell my clients all the time, I love being wrong. It means because your house is worth more money than I thought it was, and you make more, I make more, and we all win. So, I'm not one of those people who needs to be right all the time.
Awesome. Matt is easily bored with routines, the status quo, and slow-moving processes.
10. That's why I love real estate. It's never the same. My Monday is completely different every week. My Tuesday is completely different than my Monday. I feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants half the time. In this
Have you
business.
ever heard the truth that we need to make peace with the mundane in real estate? How's that going for you?
Not very well.
Making notes.
Uh-oh, fired.
He prefers open-ended settings to highly structured ones, but he can adjust to essential guidelines as necessary.
Yeah, that's like we talked about before, the mastermind. Like that to me is open-ended, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more calm. Structure is not something that I really want to deal with if I don't have to. If we need it, it'll be there. But if we don't, let's find a better way, a little bit more relaxed way to handle our issues.
Okay. Matt expects to be accountable for specific outcomes, but he seeks the freedom to initiate and implement projects on his own.
10.
Okay. Matt responds well to leadership roles, and he likes to organize work groups and make decisions.
I'm going to say 9 again, just because it's that leadership role. And I really do believe, and maybe it's a different person than I was when I took that KPA. Maybe I've grown in a year. And I know I have in this role, but I feel like the collaborative part is very important to me now. And again, I'm saying 9 because ultimately it's still my decision, but getting input on situations that I'm not 100% sure in a role that I'm growing into, I don't think is ever a bad idea.
Okay. Matt likes to identify with a capable team, and he can often inspire others with his energy, optimism, and direct approach.
10.
He works to be a key contributor and an assertive influence.
10.
He is drawn to socially challenging and dynamic environments where he can take the lead in directing others and deciding how things should be done.
10.
He is sociable and persuasive, and he will take initiative to sell his ideas and decisions.
That's what I do for a living. 10.
There you go. All right, sir. How accurate as a whole do you think this KPA is?
I mean, just like, when I think overall it's probably a 10. I feel like there was a couple 9s in there. I think I might have put 1 8 up. So I feel like as a whole, it hit me pretty well.
Okay.
Nothing stands out that really seemed wrong or off. So yeah.
I'm looking for the 8. There was the 1 8. So let's go back and look what that was.
feel like there was one. I don't remember what it was though.
Well, I had a 6 down too when I asked you if you got bored easily and had the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, that was the other one that was low. Maybe there was, and that was one of my, when I first went through this, I was like, is it wrong to have this many 10s? That was one of the questions, and I wonder if
it's not wrong. This particular assessment is most of the time accurate, like 98% of the time. It is a 10.
Yeah.
There are times when it doesn't read right, and that's why we ask these questions so that I can make the adjustments. If you had a whole bunch of 6s, I'd have a lot more writing on these pages because I'd still want the assessment to reflect who you are in your own. But I mean, KW spent a lot of time developing this and used, obviously, as we always do, the best professionals in the assessment world to come up with it. So it's usually spot on.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that was one of the things that going through it now as an OP that I wonder if that's a conversation that you almost need to have with the people you're validating, just to say, hey, look, be honest. If it's a 10, make it a 10, because I'm wondering if people go through the process and they say, well, I feel bad because I just said 5 10s in a row. Maybe I should make this a 9 instead of it. So that's something that the first time I did it, I finally asked my RD, I was like, is it okay to have this many 10s? He's like, absolutely, 100%. I was like, okay, cool. All right, good deal.
What we can sometimes get is the person verifying the report is just take the 10 at face value and not go deep enough.
True.
Right? Okay. This particular paragraph isn't the entirety of Matt Myatt. I want to know more. So even if it's a 10, ask those deeper digging questions.
Absolutely.
All right. Overall comments.
It was fun.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah. And again, I think at times, I think as a new OP, I think I overthink it. And like you said, I think I might rush through it. It's like, oh, it's a 10. Okay, just keep going. Because it hit it spot on. And I think that's hopefully what anyone. The reason we're recording this is hopefully maybe other people will see that and say, hey, yeah, that is a 10, but let's still dig deeper into that and find out why it's a 10.
And I think that comes with, what's the intention of doing this, right? Why do we give a KPA? In my opinion, it's so that we can actually get the conversation going, because there's questions I can ask you. This opens the door to that. If I didn't have this, I wouldn't know to go to those places. It's not that the assessment is your biography. It's the conversation that can be developed because of the assessment. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Totally.
So I believe our intention going into the KPA verification has to be get to know this other human at a really, really deep level. And this is the tool to do that.
Well, I mean, you got to think we're about to consider getting into business with these people. We need to know them at a deeper level than just sitting down at an interview process and asking the non-probing questions. And that's something that I'm learning as we're going.
Well, like if we don't ask the probing questions, there's 2 things that we miss that are so important through this process. Number 1, the relationship doesn't get developed as deeply.
Correct.
Right? That's one of the brilliant pieces of this. Number 2, the person receiving the verification doesn't have the opportunity to go, oh my gosh, I finally make sense to myself.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you and I talked about. I think that's kind of why we're here, is when I saw Gary doing on stage at Mega Camp, I was like, wow, it's a lot deeper than anything that, I've done with it. So again, it's a learning process. I mean, you took it a heck of a lot deeper than I have. And I think a lot of other people are probably in that same situation.
Yeah.
So, it was fun.
The cool thing is when you like people, which we both do,
yep.
This gets to be fun, because you really do get to know an incredible human being on the other side of the table.
Absolutely. And if it doesn't work out, you might, get a friend out of it anyway. If they're not the right hire, you might meet somebody.
If you do this right, I'd say that's 100% of the time. You'll have a raving fan at the other side of this, even if you never get into business together.
Absolutely. So.
All right, sir, I'm going to stop the recording. Maybe if I can find it. Don't go away. There it is. Up and